Hello boys and girls, my name is Boingus and I make stupid little games. I was browsing the Game Maker forums today and I came across a post of a guy asking when, not if, but when, we are going to implement AI into Game Maker, or Yo-Yo Games, or anyone, someone, please help this man. And the reason I stress this so much is because he actually made the original post 2 whole years ago, and then he's come back a little over 2 years later, almost 3, and he's asking when will Game Maker be able to integrate AI? And the future is now. We already can. I would just like to specify before diving into this that this is both a tutorial but also a word of warning. Big languages like JavaScript and C++, these large language models have years and years and years and millions of files that they can look over to learn how programming in those languages works. And they're just barely okay at it. Game Maker is not as widely adopted as either of those languages, and you'll be surprised to find that it is absolutely horrific at writing Game Maker code. But what do we have? Well, we've got a loose semblance of a Pac-Man project. We've got a player and a wall, and you'll see here we have the room, but we also have a ghost sprite, no ghost object, and I'll show you why in a moment. So, to jump into the world of AI and Game Maker, you need a couple of things, and then a third optional one to make life a bit easier. The first is going to be a GitHub account, more specifically for GitHub Copilot, which is the AI solution provided by Microsoft and GitHub, and it is free, up to a certain number of uses per month. So, once you get that set up, you're going to want to download VS Code or Visual Studio Code. And when you do first start up VS Code, you won't see anything like this. You'll see a big welcome screen, and it'll say, let's set up AI and blah 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 blah. You can follow along with that, but if you come unstuck, the easiest way is to go to your account here, and you can ask to sign into your GitHub account, or pop down here to the lower right hand corner, and you'll see something along the lines of use AI features. So I have a GitHub Copilot Premium account for use outside of Game Maker, but you do not need one to do this. It just sort of gives you a handful of extra models to use, but we're going to use a model that's available to everyone for this example. So let's dive right in. We're going to get it to write some code. So I'm going to say to it, hi there, I'm trying to recreate a basic version of Pac-Man in Game Maker Studio. Oh, well, not Studio actually nowadays. Please could you make O player move like Pac-Man and collide with O wall? It's very simple. We're not giving it too much information. We're just saying, here we go. And I've done a couple of things to trip it up, and a couple of things to trip us up as well. For example, just like using ChatGPT or anything like that, this isn't great. We're talking to it and it's just giving us the code and saying, oh, go and copy and paste it there. But the reason we want to do things through VS Code is we have something called agent mode. And so rather than doing all of this manually, you can actually go back here, and I'm just going to ask to do that over, but in agent mode this time. And what you'll notice is that it starts reading our files, and then it runs around and it implements everything that it thinks it's going to need. So apparently it's edited our create event. That has not yet happened, and it's completely stopped for some reason. There we go. So it's given us a direction, a speed, and a next direction for input buffering. And if we go and take a look at the step event, dear God, it has done a lot. So let's accept all of this and we'll take a quick peek at the code. First thing I'd like to notice is just the amount of comments and the level of cohesion in when it, and why it chooses, quote-unquote, to comment things. So move speed is self-explanatory, but so is move direction, but it has commented one of these for no apparent reason. But whatever, let's go into the step event and we'll take a look. So it does have some form of move buffering in here. It is actually checking for collisions with the wall, and I reckon if we go back into Game Maker and we reload this, we can run this and we'll probably find that Pac-Man does actually move. So that's great. And as you can see, immediately I've been able to run into a wall. And this is one of those little obstacles, or I think it's one of those little obstacles I've set up for myself, The player sprite, because the goal in any game like this would be to rotate it, has been center aligned. So I'm just going to go back, and I'm not going to tell it that it's been center aligned. I'm just going to say, for some reason, my player can walk into walls sometimes. The movement code allows the player to move horizontally and vertically in the same step, so I imagine that's not the cause of the issue, and this is going to be a theme that you see a lot when you start using AI with GML. It makes guesses at what the problem is. It doesn't always go with the most obvious solution. But for our purposes of working this way, I'm really tired of going back into GameMaker and reloading and running things, so you can actually get an extension called Stitch. It's by Butterscotch Shenanigans, so not Yo-Yo Games, and Stitch is basically the GameMaker editor for VS Code. And if you actually pop into the little Stitch pop-up that comes down here when you install it, you can go in and you can add objects and edit their events and blah 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 blah. So we're going to assume it's wrong, but we can now hit F5 within Visual Studio Code, and it'll run our GameMaker project. And lo and behold, the movement down doesn't work at all. So we're just going to deal with it. I'm going to ask to go back to before it made these changes, and we'll just live with it the way it is. It's loosely functional, so there we go, and we can do the input buffering and move around and all of that with just a handful of problems down the line. So, I'm now going to say to it, that's great, please could you add a ghost object that chases the player. And here's where we're about to see why this is such a horrific solution. The AI is really having a think, and it's actually gone ahead and it's created the ghost object for us. And it's doing some logical things here. It's even created the .yy file, like the player has, to specify, hey, you're a ghost, and here are your events, and it's done some weird stuff here. And it's written some code, so let's accept all of this, and we're going to go back into GameMaker Room Editor, and we're going to add our nothing, because it's not actually gone ahead and added that ghost object to the project file. And if you try to get it to do that, more often than not, it will end up corrupting your project file, which is bad news. So, I'm just going to do this manually, ghosts, and then we'll just tab the rest out. And if we give that a save, and we go back into GameMaker, you'll notice the project file's corrupted. One moment. It has screwed up creating this oghost.yy file. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into the player, and I'm going to copy their file, and we're just going to change this to oghost, and we'll change the sprite to sghost. And now all of a sudden, oh, beg your pardon, oghost. Now all of a sudden, if we go to open the project file up, everything's working. But again, that's deep ball knowledge, because if you've not had to do this before, you would likely just run into a corrupted project file and cry. Let's add a ghost to the room and see how it's done. And this is our final version of Pac-Man, ready to be played. So beautiful. And I've run into a wall. The ghost moves slower upwards than it does sideways, and it doesn't have any form of A-star pathfinding. It just gets as close as possible while avoiding the walls, and I cannot stress enough how much quicker this would have been if I just decided to make Pac-Man on my own. So for the guy asking, why won't they implement AI, and when will they implement AI? Hopefully never, but if you crave it, this is a technical solution. And I don't want to be Mr. Doom and Gloom. There are actual practical use cases for working this way, and this is actually my current pipeline for how I work. Namely, documentation. So sometimes I will write a function, and I'll forget. I actually can't find an example of a function in this project. I'll write a function, and I'll forget to add the JS docs to it. Getting it to do that nails it. 100% of the time, I've never had an issue with it doing that in huge code bases. Things like writing small functions, but also just being an earpiece to bounce things off of, or helping debug, when you run into a particularly nasty bug that you're really, really struggling on. It's really, really good at those as well. It's just horrific at writing code, which, if you're a programmer and you want to use AI, that's probably 99% of what you want to use it for, so not too great. But anyways, boys and girls, thank you so much for listening to me ramble for however long this video has run on, and I will chat to you guys one day. Bye.